जय। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की जय। गुरुराराधना दिश्च गुरुः परमदैवतम् गुरोः परतरं नास्ति तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। भ्रातस्तिष्ठतले तले विटपिनाम् ग्रामेषु भिक्षामट स्वच्छन्दं पिबयामुनं जलमलं चीरैः सुगन्धां कुरु सम्मानं कलयाति घोरगरलं नीचापमानं सुधाम् श्रीराधा मुरलीधरौ भज सखे वृन्दावनं मा त्यज। नमः कमलना भाय नमः कमल मालिने नमः कमल पादाय नमस्ते कमलेक्षण यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रणोति तस्मै तद्ब्रह्म देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशं मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। Devotional listeners, now I humbly request your full attention, and I would also like to request if you have your cell phone with you, and you could please make sure that it will not ring. Please do not use it during the lecture. Thank you. Yesterday I started talking to you about managing the mind, the science of the mind as disclosed in the Bhagavad Gita by Shri Krishna. How to understand the mind, how to manage the mind, how to control the mind. So let me summarize what was said yesterday. Shri Krishna explains that there are many things that disturb the mind, and one of those is desire. That creates the biggest disturbance in the mind. When a desire comes into the mind, then anger and greed are sure to follow. When we don't get what we want, we become angry, and when we get what we desire, we become greedy. So anger and greed are children of the mother called desire. Then other vices also come and torment the mind. The mind is our inner world, and despite the fact that our external world is formidable, it's endless, yet philosophers have said that the inner world is richer, ampler, and more complex. So desire is the biggest problem for the mind, And then we understood from the Geeta why desires are created in the mind, and the answer Shri Krishna gives is attachment. When we become attached somewhere to a person or an object, then we start desiring that person or that object. And then we looked at why we become attached to anyone or anything. And the reason was disclosed that we think that there is happiness in people and in objects and in creatures. When we repeatedly think that someone can bring us happiness, we form an attachment to them. If we think that a certain object can bring us happiness, we form an attachment or addiction to that object. Dhyayato vishayan punsaha sangasteshu pajayate. Dhyayato vishayan punsah sangasteshu pajayate. Sangat sanjayate kamah kamat krodho bhijayate. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2. So Shri Krishna explains that when we repeatedly think there's happiness in someone, we form an attachment. And then when the attachment is formed, then we start desiring that person or that object. If it's a person, we want to spend time with them, we want to see them, we want to touch them, we want to embrace them, we want to hear their words, we want to experience them with all our five senses. It could be an object or an individual. But now, why do we want happiness? Why do we, when we think there is happiness somewhere, we form an attachment? So if we didn't look for happiness, we would not form attachments, there would be no desires, the mind would be protected. So we looked at this question, why do we always look for happiness? Why are we searching for it? And the answer is given by many scriptures. Remember, the Gita is a short scripture. There's not much explanation there, but there are other scriptures, the Vedas and Upanishads. And remember that the Bhagavad Gita is the essence of the teachings of the Upanishads. Sarvopanishado gavo dogdha gopala nandana. Right? So the Upanishads are like a cow. Shri Krishna is a cowherd who milks this cow, and the essence of the milk of the cow, that is the Bhagavad Gita, and Arjun is the calf that is given the milk to drink. So it is explained to us by other scriptures that we are always searching for happiness because we belong to God. God is a source and we are His children. We belong to Him and we are His parts. And so it is a law of nature that every part desires to be with its source. And so it is that we are always searching for God. And God is another name for happiness. So we are always searching for happiness because we are always searching for God. And this is where we left off yesterday. I'll now continue. So we are searching everywhere for happiness. Did we find it yet? We have not found happiness yet. Happiness, as explained, as defined by Upanishads, and Chandogya Upanishad namely, is Yovai Bhuma Tat Sukham. Nalpe Sukhamasti Bhuma Tveva Vijigyasitavyaha. This mantra from Chandogya Upanishad says that happiness is that which is unlimited. If it's limited, and if it's not everlasting, and if it's not always increasing, it's not happiness. So happiness is unlimited, everlasting, and ever increasing. It keeps on increasing with every moment that passes. Pratikshanam vardhamanam. And it does not ever stop increasing. We have never tasted that happiness. We've never had happiness. We'll find out what it is that we call happiness. But here, let's look at the fact that the scriptures say that there is no happiness in the world. Tasmat dukkhatmakam nasti naiva kinchit sukhatmakam. Vishnu Puran says the world does not have happiness to give anyone, and the world does not give anyone unhappiness either. The world is a source of neither happiness nor unhappiness. Jagat Guru Uttam Shri Kripalu Maharaj says this in a more familiar language in Bhakti Shatak. Jag maha sukh dukh do nahi, asur dharile gyan. There is no happiness in the world. Understand this knowledge really well. Sukh mane dukh milat hai, sukh na jagat mahaman. If you believe there to be happiness in the world, you will surely receive unhappiness. You'll surely become unhappy. So do not think that there is happiness in the world. The mind says there's no happiness in the world. I don't believe that. Well, scriptures give us logics to prove their point, to prove what they're saying. They say that what we call happiness is not real happiness. The world does not have happiness to give us. No one and no object, no person, no object has happiness to give anyone. Let's say your mind says there is happiness. There is happiness in chocolate. There is happiness. You can't prove to me that chocolate doesn't make me happy, because it does. I feel very happy when I taste chocolate. It's a fact. You can't tell me that I'm not experiencing happiness. Alright, then scriptures say the happiness you get from chocolate, if there is happiness in chocolate, don't you think that everyone would be happy with chocolate? If chocolate is a source of happiness, then isn't it true that everyone in the world would be happy with chocolate? Yeah, that makes sense. But everyone doesn't love chocolate. The one who loves chocolate cannot understand how it is that there'll be some people who don't love chocolate. But it's true. Not everyone likes chocolate. Now give me something salty, something savory. I don't like chocolate. Really? Yes. Not everybody likes chocolate. If there was happiness in chocolate, everyone would be happy with it. You can take, instead of chocolate, you can say dosa. You can say rasam. You can say kadi chawal. You can say pizza. Any food. Not everyone likes these foods. One person says, I love that. I love dosa. Another says, I don't care for it. So if there was happiness in these foods, then everyone would be eating them and everyone would be really happy eating them. Some people say, they will ask you, is there garlic in this food you're giving me? Yes. Sorry, I don't eat garlic. I don't like garlic. Another says, is there garlic in this food? No, I didn't put any. It's not going to be tasting good. And some people think garlic and onion, they enhance the flavor of food. Others say they spoil it. And others will say, I cannot stand the smell of onion and garlic. One is saying, I can't stand the smell. The other one says, oh, this smells so good. So, onion and garlic, is there happiness in these things, in these foods? No, because everyone is not happy with these things. And even if you take the example of one person, if there is happiness in chocolate, then let's say you love chocolate and I give you a box of chocolates. Then you take the first chocolate and your eyes close and there's such a blissful look on your face. Oh, that's amazing. That's really good chocolate. Where is that from? Switzerland? Oh, they have the best chocolates. So you take the first chocolate and it feels really, really good. And it's like 100% happiness. But you take the second one and you have to admit, the second one is not as great as the first one. The happiness you felt in eating the first one, it has gone down. It's not as It's not as good as the first one. The third one gives even less happiness. With every subsequent chocolate, you're getting less and less happiness. And there comes a point when you say, no more. But the whole box is yours. You go ahead and eat it. Let me keep it for later. Right now, I can't even look at it. No, I insist. You want me to throw up? We say, now, there came a point when there was no happiness. We're not tasting any happiness in chocolate. Then there came a point when we started receiving unhappiness from the same thing. It's a source of happiness. Yes, happiness, less happiness, less happiness, less happiness, zero happiness. Oh, there's misery in this chocolate. This chocolate is making me miserable. So, chocolate does not give happiness to even one person all the time. If there was happiness in chocolate, you would receive happiness from it all the time. All the time. And that happiness would be ever increasing. But we note from our experience, we see and we're dismayed to find this, that happiness keeps on decreasing with every passing moment. The child is playing with a toy. Oh my goodness, this is a wonderful toy. I love it, I love it, love it. And after a while, I don't love it so much. After a few days, I want another one. I don't care for this. So cleverly, a mother puts away that toy after a while, and then after a few days or after a few weeks, introduces it again to the child, and the child goes, I love this toy, once again. Whether it's a toy for a child or it's a new car, it's some food, favorite food, or a nice house or a boat, whatever it may be, a piece of jewelry, the coveted piece of jewelry that you saved up for and you finally got and you were so happy. No matter what it is, happiness that we get from these objects is ever decreasing. You may say, well, these are objects you're talking about. What about people? What about individuals? Well, a mother loves her child. Her child goes to kindergarten for the very first day the child goes to kindergarten. The child is crying, mommy's crying. Both of them are crying. She misses her child so much and she can't wait to pick him up. She picks him up and she holds him in her arms and she kisses him, caresses him. And after a while, she's experiencing so much happiness, but after some time, she puts the child down. The child says, Mommy, you keep on holding me. I want to be in your lap. I want you to hold me. The mother will scold the child. I've got other things to do. I've got to make a snack for you. I've got to cook dinner. I can't pick you up all the time. Here are your toys. The child is distracted by toys. The mother distracts the child with toys. Now, if there was happiness in the child, do you think the mother would ever put the child down? She would not. How could she let go of her happiness? But she does. Now, 5,000 years ago, when Brahmaji decided to test Sri Krishna, when Brahmaji heard that God has taken birth in his Brahmand, he thought, I didn't get any notice. I don't know that that Prabhu has come to my Brahmand. And he was told, you see that boy over there? The boy who's sitting in the circle with the other boys, cowherd boys? Yes. And he's snatching food from their mouths and putting it in his mouth? Yes. That's Brahma. Brahmaji said, impossible. That can't be God. That cannot be Brahma. So he decided to test. He decided to test Sri Krishna. He took all the boys, cowherd boys and the cows and the calves, and he locked them, put them away in a cave. But what Sri Krishna did was he became every cowherd boy. He became every cow. He became every calf. And now the mothers of the children, mothers of those cowherd boys, they did not find there to be any difference in the way the children looked. But there was only one thing different, and that was that the mothers of those cowherd boys kept on looking at their children. No mother wanted her child to go away from her, not even for a moment. She wanted that child to be before her eyes all the time, because that was the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And these gopis are thinking, what's going on? I never felt like this about my child before. I mean, my child would go and play, and I would deliberately tell the child to go. Now I don't want him to go anywhere. I want him to be in front of my eyes. I want to keep on looking at him. I want to keep on embracing him and kissing his sweet face. No one found out what had happened. The cows could not stop licking their calves. Everything was different, but everyone looked the same. So when Shri Krishna became every boy and every cow and every calf, then the mothers, whether these were the gopis or the cows, the mothers of the calves, who had not been hidden away, they were at home, they were not grazing, they found there to be a huge difference. They did not want to be away from their children. We're talking about God here. But when it comes to a worldly person, the mother's love for the child is the greatest of all love. The most selfless. Almost selfless. So the most selfless of worldly love is mother's love for her child. But there's no love, there's no happiness in the child. So the mother says, now I'm going to go and I'm going to go inside and do my chores. And you stay over here and you play. Is there really happiness in a person? The mother loves her child and she says, yes, my child brings me happiness. But the neighbor doesn't feel that way. The neighbor says, oh, this mischievous child, always making mischief, always coming into my yard and messing it up. The neighbor doesn't love the child. The neighborhood doesn't love the child. The mother loves the child. If there was happiness in that child, everyone in the world would love that child. Everyone in the world without exception. But not even one person finds happiness in another person all the time. When the child is being obedient and when the child is well behaved, the mother finds there to be so much happiness in the child. When the child is misbehaving, the child is not listening to her, not obeying her, the mother says, oh, Rakshas paida hua hai. Well, this is a demon. He's a devil. There's no happiness. At that point, she doesn't receive any happiness from her child. When he's listening to her, she says, oh, Shravan Kumar. She calls him Shravan Kumar, one who is so obedient and one who serves his parents so well. Oh my goodness. There was a Shravan Kumar so many years ago, ages ago, and now this is the second one. He listens to me. When he doesn't listen, then there's no happiness in that child. And we experience this, don't we? We experience all this. Scriptures are telling us to just listen to our experiences and think about our experiences and to understand why scriptures say there is no happiness in the world. Because remember, happiness is unlimited, everlasting, and ever increasing. And in the world, what we are receiving is the complete opposite. It's very limited, it is short-lived, and it's ever decreasing. Even when we are tasting it, it keeps going down further and further. So what is it that we call happiness? We've all used that word. We've all said these words, I am so happy, right? We've all said it. Am I right? We've all said it. I'm so happy. So it's like this. Let's say there are two prisoners. They are political prisoners. And they're put in jail for their politics. They haven't committed crimes. It's just for political reasons they're in the jail. And so now it's a hot summer's day, and the prison warden comes and opens their cells and takes both the prisoners out in the yard and it's a very hot day. So to one of them he says, go and sit in the shade of the tree. To the other he says, go and stand in the sun. This example is a brilliant one, and I don't say this because I thought of it. It is from the brilliant, divinely brilliant mind of Jagat Guru Uttam Shri Kripalu Ji Maharaj. So now there are two prisoners. One is sitting in the shade of the tree. The other is standing in the scorching heat of the sun. So one is feeling happy. The other is feeling unhappy. Agreed? Yes? Yes. So now, a short time later, the prison warden goes to the prisoner standing in the heat of the sun and starts beating him. The prisoner now has two problems. One, he is feeling very, very hot, and the other is he's being beaten. So there are two problems that he's facing. So he cries for mercy. Sometime later, the beating stops. So now this prisoner thinks, oh, thank God, he stopped beating me. Just then, the prison warden tells the other man, now you go and stand along with the other one. So the one who was in a comfortable position he was sitting under a tree, he was feeling the cool shade of the tree, he now has to stand in the scorching heat of the sun. So you have two prisoners standing in the heat of the sun. You ask them, how are you feeling? One says, I am so unhappy. The other says, I am happy. Both are standing in the heat of the sun. One is unhappy, the other is happy. The one who says he's happy, why does he say that? Just a hypothetical question. Because you heard this from me before. Why does he say that he is feeling happy? Because he had two problems. He was standing in the heat of the sun and he was being beaten. So when one of his sorrows went away, he says, oh, at least I have one less thing to worry about. I have one less problem to deal with. He calls that happiness. And isn't that what we do? There are so many problems, challenges in life. And if we get relief from some of them, or even just one of them, we heave a sigh of relief and we say, oh, thank God, I'm happy. It's not real happiness. What we mean to say is, and I have one less problem in my life. Not that I have no problems in my life, that this feeling of happiness it's unlimited and it's going to last me forever, and I just keep on feeling more and more happy and keep on feeling happier and happier. It's not that. Let me think that, that my happiness is coming from my child, from my spouse, from my friends, from my gadgets, from my clothes, from my jewelry, from my house. Happiness is not coming from anyone or anything. That happiness is just being imagined by the mind. Here's another example, very effective one. A dog is chewing on a bone which is dry. It's very dry. There's nothing on it. Nothing. It's just a dried up bone. The dog has found it somewhere and starts chewing on it. And while it chews on the bone causes the dog's throat to bleed. Now the dog is sucking its own blood, but thinks that the blood is coming from the bone, so it's thinking, wow, what a juicy bone this is. And we would say, what a foolish dog. That blood is the dog's own blood. That blood is not coming from the bone. The bone is dry, it's not juicy. Now that dog doesn't know any better because it has limited intelligence. It does have intelligence, but very little intelligence. But we are humans. We have an incredible amount of intelligence. We have an advanced mind. And yet we are not able to understand that happiness is not coming from any person or any object or some creature. Because the same person that we think to be a source of happiness, and we say, I get so much happiness from this person, my loved one, the same person becomes a source of great sorrow. So what is this? What is this drama? It's just that nobody has happiness to give anyone. In Brihadaranyukopanishad, it is said, Nava are patyuh kamaya, patih priyo bhavatyatmanastu kamaya, patih priyo bhavati. Nava are jayayai kamaya, jaya priya bhavatyatmanastu kamaya, jaya priya bhavati, etc. That nobody loves anyone for the sake of the happiness of for his or her happiness. Nobody loves another for their sake. Everyone loves anyone for their own sake. The wife loves the husband for her own sake. Husband loves the wife for his own sake, for his own happiness. Parents love children for their happiness. Children love parents for their own happiness. No one loves another for the happiness of another. Everyone is looking out for their own happiness. And everyone is thinking there's happiness in this one, this one, this one. But we keep on being disappointed. Because the premise is false, that there is happiness in the world. That's the premise we go with, but it's a false premise. So the one who doesn't expect any happiness from the world is very satisfied, very happy, because this person didn't expect any happiness, so he's never disappointed. He's never disillusioned. He doesn't clutch his heart and say, I didn't expect this from you. Because he didn't expect anything. He is wise. He has not expected. He doesn't have any expectations from anyone. Because he knows, he understands that happiness is not coming. Happiness is not given by anyone. That happiness is in the mind. It's the mind that thinks there's happiness in this person. And the same mind says, no, there's not so much happiness. Not as much as I thought. And then sometime later the mind says, no, actually there's no happiness in this person. So we keep on changing our mind, don't we? So there was a woman and she said, Didiji, why is it that when I first got married, I used to want my husband to stand before me, and I used to say to him, before I open my eyes, I want you to stand before me because your darshan is the first one I want. I said, okay. And she was a very jovial natured woman. And she said, now 20 years have passed and I tell him, look, before I open my eyes, I want you to be out of the room. She was joking, but she was also serious. Why did this happen? How did this happen? So once we understand that happiness is not coming from a person or an object, it's not coming from the world, then we can say, oh, okay, now I understand. My mind was making this up. My mind was wanting happiness. So it was experiencing imaginary happiness. Happiness is not what I was thinking it to be. That wasn't happiness. What we call happiness is a temporary joy, pleasure. Once you receive happiness, it can never go away from you. Once you receive happiness, you'll always be happy. You'll always have it, forever and ever. And you'll be happier and happier and happier. It will never come to an end. It will keep on increasing. And that happiness, there's only one source of that happiness, and that is God. Anando brahmeti vyajanat. God is happiness. So if someone says, if we say, and we all say, I want happiness, we cannot stay away from God. We have conducted the same experiment, unlimited times in the world. Let me see if there's happiness in the world. We made friends. One friend let us down. We said, never mind, I'll look for another one. The other one let us down. Now there's no happiness in this one either. Then another, then another. But we didn't understand that Narmada ke kankar sab shankar. Everyone is the same, exactly the same. There's no happiness in anyone. That doesn't mean that they're at fault. They're not at fault. No one is at fault. Just that no one has happiness to give. We're all beggars and we're asking each other for happiness. And we keep fooling each other. I'll give you happiness. I'll give you happiness. It's like a beggar asking for alms, and another beggar says, let me fool this guy. And he says, I'll give you $1 million. Really? Will you? Yes. Here's a check. And this beggar goes to the bank to withdraw the cash, and he's thrown out of the bank. There's no such account. There's nothing. So we're fooling each other, saying, I can give you happiness. I can make you happy. We don't have the capacity because we are ourselves searching for happiness. Now, there is another thing that's going on in our mind. There's another problem in the mind, and that is that our mind thinks that everyone should be favorable to us. Everyone should like me. That's another something wrong with our mind, something else that is wrong with our mind, that we expect others to be favorable to us. And we are devastated when we are not liked. If somebody doesn't like us, we don't feel good. We expect that everyone would like us. How can that be? When someone feels that there is some happiness to be had from a person, then he looks towards that person. We also, when we think that someone has something called happiness to give us, we look in that person's direction. If we feel there's nothing to be had from this person, do we ever look in that person's direction? We refuse to look in his direction. You have nothing to give me. You don't have happiness to give me. Why should I even look at you? We are slaves of that happiness. So is everyone else. So how can it be that everyone will favor us? Everyone will like us. Everyone will agree with us. It's impossible. When Bhagwan comes to earth, everybody doesn't like him. Some do, some don't. Saintly souls, they come to uplift humanity, but they are mistreated. They are wronged. They are beaten up. More people will find fault with them. Very few people will see them as being godly. So if these great ones, God and godly saints, if they are not liked by everyone, then why should we think that everyone will like us? Fact is that our mind is a product of Maya. And Maya is tricolored. Ajamekam lohita shukla krishnam bahvihi prajah srijamanam sarupah ajo heko jushamano nushete jahatyenam bhukta bhogam ajonyah. Maya is tricolored. It is white, red, and black. White, red, and black. Sattvagun, Rajogun, and Tamogun. Sattvagun, the mode of virtue and goodness. Rajogun, the mode of worldly passions and desires. And Tamogun being the mode of ignorance. These three modes of Maya are in our mind simultaneously, and they are fighting with one another. You can say as wrestlers, three wrestlers in an arena fighting with each other, with one another, and each one wanting to defeat the other two. So when Sattva-gun becomes a dominant mode, then we become very good. We become the best versions of ourselves. We have faith in God. We are good. We think good of others. We are virtuous. Everything good. We become very giving. We become very forgiving. When Rajogun is the dominant mode, we become worldly, very active in the world. And when Tamogun is a dominant mode within us, in our mind, then we become very agitated. We are we get angry very quickly. We're quick to anger. We become the worst versions of ourselves. And these three modes are fighting within us all the time, every moment. And we don't know which mode is going to be the dominant one. We don't know how we are going to feel the next moment. How can we tell about others? Which mode is dominant one in this person, in my family member, in my loved one? We don't know. How could it be that everybody, we would get along with everyone, everybody would get along with us? We should not be surprised. We should not feel badly about this. When I started preaching, I would take it personally if there were times when very few people would come to my lectures. And Shri Maharaj in India, I was in Canada, and he knew what I was feeling, so he wrote me a letter. And he said, Meri Bittiya, my daughter, if people come to your lectures, be surprised. If they don't come, that's normal. Because this is Kali Yuga. If people come and they want to hear you, then be surprised. And Shri Maharaj also used to say, if two people are getting along, that's very surprising. Because their minds are controlled by Maya. Maya has three modes, and these three wrestlers are in both these people, and we don't know which mode, neither one knows which mode is going to be the winner, and yet they're getting along. That's surprising. If they're not getting along, that's normal. That is normal. So we should understand this. We should understand that everybody's not going to be favorable to us. Even the same person, one and the same person, is not going to be always favorable to us. That's a fact. And there will be people, they will find fault with us, always. The same person who's praising you will find fault with you one day. That is for certain. Shri Maharaj used to say, today you are touching my feet, putting flower garlands around my neck, but I will not be surprised if you throw stones at me tomorrow. And everyone was shocked. We would throw stones at Maharaj? No, never. He said, I would not be surprised. That's the key. It will not surprise me because I expect everything. The same person who's lavishing praise on you will criticize you. That is human nature. If you have said something that he agrees with, he'll say, you're a good person. Then you suddenly say something he does not agree with. Excuse me, what are you saying? You were agreeing with me. Now I'm not agreeing with you. I don't like you anymore. I don't like you. I didn't think you thought this way. This was your philosophy. And Bhartrihari has said, Maunan mukah paravachana patushchatulo jalpakova drishtah parshve vasati chadat chasada. He says, if you are the quiet type, people will find, there are many people who will find fault with you. They'll say, oh, she doesn't know what to say. He's dull-witted, doesn't know how to talk. If you are the talkative type, then other people will find fault with you. They'll say, oh, here comes motor mouth. Let's go the other way. He will not stop talking. Talk. Let's go the other way. If you are the friendly type and you visit someone frequently, they'll say, you have nothing better to do. They'll think that. You have nothing better to do. Outwardly, they say, aye, please come in. Inwardly, they'll think, oh, they thalle baithe rehte hain, kuch kaam dhaam hai nahi. He has nothing to do, so he comes to visit. Jab dekho, wo utha ke chale aaye. Right? And if you're the type who likes to stay by yourself, and people will think, oh, very arrogant. You know what? She thinks she's too good for the rest of us. Doesn't want to socialize. No matter what you do, you're going to be criticized. There was a saint who said, if you are good, then the bad people will criticize you. If you are bad, good people will criticize you. Either way, you'll be criticized, so it's better to be good. You will be criticized no matter what. But we want people to like us and to agree with us, to be agreeable with us. And because of this, we suffer. But God Himself has shown us that even God is prone to criticism. Bhagwan Shankar came for the tour of Prithvi Lok with Parvati, Mother Parvati, and they brought along the divine vehicle, Nandi, the bull. So they were all three were walking, Bhagwan Shankar, Mother Parvati, and Nandi. And people, we looked at them and we laughed, we snickered, and we pointed, look at them, look at the fools. They have an animal, a beast of burden, and yet they're not even riding him. So they both started riding on Nandi. And then some other people came along. They said, look at these people. They're able-bodied. There's nothing wrong with them. They're not so old that they can't walk. There's nothing wrong with their limbs. They're fine. Why are they both riding on this poor animal? So Bhagwan Shankar said, well, Parvati, I shall alone ride on Nandi. When she was walking behind, then people criticized Bhagwan Shankar. ये देखो, मोटा मुस्टंडा बैठा हुआ है और चल रहा है ऐसे आराम से और पीछे स्त्री जैसे नौकरानी हो. People found fault with him. They said, why is he riding on this animal? And his poor wife, so skinny, she's tagging along. He has no shame. Shankar Bhagwan heard this and then he said, Parvati, you now ride. Sometime later, Parvati ji was criticized. Oh, घोर कलयुग है. जा रही है रानी महारानी की तरह, पीछे नौकर की तरह पति चल रहा. Husband is walking behind like a servant and she is like the great queen. No concern with the husband. Shame on her. So then they said, okay, we'll pick Nandi up. So they picked Nandi up. And then they were mocked the most. They said, look at these fools. You know what? They belong in a mental institute. They have an animal. They're picking him up. Crazy. Shankar Bhagwan asked Parvati, did you learn something from this? Yes. No matter what you do, people will criticize you. So the wise ones don't look at public opinion. When they are praised, they don't let that praise go to their head. And when they are criticized, they don't fall apart. I saw my Gurudev praised to such an extent that it was unbelievable. When Shri Maharaj went to Ayodhya ji, people in Ayodhya said, oh, Bhagwan Ram has come again. And these are not people who know him and they love him and they're lovingly saying this. They are feeling this from him. They have not had this darshan before. They are seeing him and they're compelled to say this. He went to Vrindavan and people would say, oh, Thakurji has come again. Again, these are not people who loved him. They're not saying this lovingly. And Shri Maharaj, when he was being praised like this, he would just look very, very bored with all this, and he would look at the watch as if to say, okay, stop saying all this. And when I also saw that he was heavily criticized in ways that's shocking. But even at that time, he was the same as he always was. And that was his greatness. No matter whether he was criticized or praised, he was the same. Because to a saint, Ninda, Stuti, Ubhaya Sam. Praise and criticism are two impostors. So a saint treats both of them the same way. And that is what we should learn. We should not become arrogant hearing praise. When we hear praise, we must think, God has given me this talent, or God has given me this. The cause of this praise is given to me by God. It's not my doing. And if we are criticized, then we should not fall to pieces, because that's just someone's opinion. Other people's opinions should not be of any concern to us. But if we do learn something, it should be this, that I'm being criticized. People are saying this about me. Can I fix this about myself? Is this true that I am like this? So can I fix myself? Can I do something about it? Not that they are finding fault with me and how could they do this? I'm not like that. What somebody says about you is their business, not yours. Praise should not increase our pride, and criticism should not devastate us. all this goes on in the mind. And our mind itself is a reason why we are feeling elated sometimes. I feel so happy, delirious with happiness. It's just the mind. And sometimes you feel crushed. Oh, I feel like dying. That's also the mind. You're feeling this sorrow because of the mind. And if we can grab hold of the mind, if we can control the mind, then the mind becomes our best friend and we would not go through these episodes. So the mind is the most powerful tool we have, the most powerful weapon that we have, weapon against ignorance, weapon against illusion and delusion. When it's controlled, the mind is our best friend. If it is left untrained and uncontrolled, it is our worst enemy. We have no enemy in the world. Our mind is our worst enemy. And there's no greater friend to us than our own mind. Granted, we control it and make it our slave, make it our servant. So we learn from Bhagavad Gita and other scriptures that happiness is not to be found in the world, not from people, not from objects. It is only found in God. God is happiness. It's not that there's happiness in God. When we say there's happiness in God, what we seem to suggest is that God is a vessel in which happiness is contained. But the fact is that God is happiness. Even if you say that there's a vessel, that vessel is happiness, and what's inside the vessel is also happiness. God is happiness. Anando brahmeti vyajanat. So what should we do to succeed in life? We should look towards God for happiness. And how do we do that? We've heard cliches, God is happiness, God is love, God is happiness. It doesn't mean anything to me. I don't know how to get that happiness from God. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Shri Krishna tells Arjuna in more than one place how we can control the mind and how we can look for happiness in God. What does Shri Krishna say to Arjuna? That will be disclosed tomorrow and day after tomorrow, in the last 2 days of this brief series. Boliye Vrindavan Bihari Lal ki Jai. Jagat Guru Uttam Shri Kripalu ji Maharaj ki Jai. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe. Jai Jai Shri Radhe.